This is your science project lesson on research, references, and citations. A bibliography is required for your science project proposal. Now you need to be sure that you have done the previous lesson on setting up Noodle tools, because Noodle tools will be required by most of your science teachers for organizing your project. So be sure that if you have not done the lesson on setting up Noodle tools, you do that first before you do this lesson. Now, your proposal requires a bibliography, but your introduction later on is going to require, in addition to this, at least 5 in-text citations from 5 different peer-reviewed scholarly sources. And we'll talk about what that means in the next slide. But why do we need cited sources? Citing sources is needed to prevent plagiarism, give credit to others for their work, and let readers know where to find the information that was used. Now, for your introduction, citations are included within the text of the paper, meaning in-text citations, when you refer to, summarize, paraphrase, or directly quote from a source. For every in-text citation in your science paper introduction, you will need a corresponding entry in your bibliography. In your final paper, in fact, we'll change the name of your bibliography to be retitled Literature Citations. Now, research requires peer-reviewed and scholarly sources. What do we mean by this? You must have 5 peer-reviewed or scholarly sources from different sources from the bibliography for your proposal. Hopefully, these will become the source of in-text citations in your introduction. Now, what does peer review mean? Peer review means that the editors of the particular article you're using sent it out to experts and scholars in the field, that is, the author's peers, to review and critically evaluate the article on quality, importance, and appropriateness to the journal. Most peer-reviewed articles present primary or new research. You may also use secondary scholarly research. While this does not present new material, it does provide a compilation or evaluation of previously presented material, which can be very helpful and also very valid. Now, for an excellent paper, we really like you to dig deep and see if you can find at least 2 of your required 5 peer-reviewed scholarly sources as peer-reviewed journal articles, as new research. An excellent paper, you will have found these types of articles as part of your references. Okay, so what do we mean? What are some examples of peer-reviewed versus scholarly versus non-scholarly sources? Peer-reviewed are scientific journals articles of original new research, and they might have titles such as articles you find in the Journal of Environmental Chemistry or Nature or the Journal of Applied Physics. They will be presenting new research. Scholarly is a little bit different. It's more of a summary. Scientific articles summarizing research or data is an example of a scholarly source, and that would be things like you might find in Scientific American or Discover or National Geographic. Encyclopedia entries and entries in most other reference books are also scholarly. Textbooks are scholarly. Some websites can be peer-reviewed and scholarly particularly if they are from government or educational entities. So look for the endings .gov and .edu. If you're all unsure whether something's peer-reviewed or scholarly, be sure you check with a teacher or librarian. Now, you can use non-peer-reviewed, non-scholarly sources, but they do not count as one of your 5. These are not reliable sources because they may have bias or inaccuracies. They haven't been reviewed. They are only useful as a source of your interest or for your anecdotes. So, for the reason why you were interested in seeing what would happen if you added this particular nutrient to a plant, for example. So be sure you're careful about how you use non-peer-reviewed, non-scholarly sources. So most website sources or most .coms are going to be non-peer-reviewed, non-scholarly. And many popular publications, like if you have a particular health magazine, Men's Health, Women's Health, the health advice in there, the science in there has not necessarily been peer-reviewed. So those are non-peer-reviewed, non-scholarly sources. And Wikipedia, by the way, is not ever allowed. So be sure you do not use Wikipedia. Okay, so where am I going to get the resources? We want to show you some really good ways to do that. So you're going to start your research here. First of all, hopefully you're already enrolled in the WNL Library course. we had you do that in the last slide and the last presentation slides, and so hopefully you're already enrolled. Go to that course, and you're going to want to click on, when you get to the W&L Library course, to the APS Library Resources. It'll bring you to a bunch of databases, and you're going to want to choose the high school databases. Why should you use these? They're free. They mainly contain peer-reviewed and scholarly sources. They do citations for you, and you can export them directly into your Noodle Tools project, making it really easy. So this is really the good first place to start, these high school databases. When you click on those, there are a lot of different databases. You're going to particularly want to look at, for example, the Science and Health Resource databases, the Gale and the Gale in Context. And also the advanced research, particularly JSTOR, is a very good one. And we're going to go through an example with JSTOR right now. So if you click on JSTOR, you will get a screen like this. You'll be brought to a screen like this, and you can type in a topic you're interested in. Below, I've typed in urban heat islands. I want to do a project on urban heat islands. And when I do that, it brings up just tremendous numbers of scholarly and peer-reviewed articles. And you can do further search. I mean, there's 17,000 of them, right? But you can see their research reports, their journals, their book chapters, and you can kind of scroll through. You'll notice most of them are open access. You can download these articles, full text articles. And after looking through the articles, here's one you might want to cite. So here's something about the impact in cities is larger than the sum of their parts. It's from the Journal of Applied Meteorology and Climatology. So yay, that's a peer-reviewed primary source, and I can download it. And I get the full article. Most of the articles you get from these sites will be free. The other nice thing about this, if you look on the side here, is not only can you download, but you can automatically cite the article. So when you click Cite, it'll give you a number of different citations, but you don't want to pick these. I mean, you can copy them, but you're making it harder on yourself. You're going to want to export the citation directly to Noodle Tools, to your Noodle Tools. So you'll click down here, for example, Export to Noodle Tools, and it may be slightly different depending on which database you use, but look for that Export to Noodle Tools. It'll bring you to a screen like this. Now this is an MLA, but your Noodle Tools is set to APA, so it'll automatically do it in APA. You'll notice now it says log in now. It'll bring you to this, but you got to go to your own Noodle Tools. So you'll go down here and you can say, you know, if you want to change anything you can, but if it looks good, as it probably will, you're going to say log in now. That brings you to our Noodle Tools screen. And do you remember the sign in is here, right here in Google Tools. You don't have to fill anything in. You just click on to remember to sign in on the Google sign in. And then it'll bring you to here. It'll bring you to your own site, like, you know, your own Noodle Tools site. There I am. This is me. I can pick the project I want to import it into. Here's my 2022-23 science project, and I can import the reference. When I do that, it goes to my Noodle Tool reference. It alphabetizes it, and it puts it in perfect formatting, and that's great. Good to go. So your Noodle Tools will populate with perfectly cited, alphabetically arranged references that can be used as citations. Now, when you're finished with your bibliography, you can export it, and you can export it right into a Google Doc or into Word where you can work with it. So once you've completed your reference list, you can export this as a document and format it as you like. And your bibliography will be created in APA format. I had exported this bibliography on urban heat islands to a Google Doc. It came out looking like this. Now, in terms of our formatting, we like the double spacing only between citations, so we want a single space in between in a citation. So to finish, you're going to single space within citations and double space between. It already includes the hanging indent, and you'll double check that it's alphabetical, but it'll be set up like that in your Noodle Tools, and so it should be. And again, in order to change it, you can go to this spacing tab right here, select the citation, make it single spaced, do each citation, and then you see you have single spaced within the citation and double spaced between. So you're going to want to adjust the spacing, double space between citations, but single space within the citations, and you'll do that by selecting this right here. Now, what if you're using a source that's not directly from the library database, that doesn't automatically cite, and you have to go into Noodle Tools and do your citation? All right, first of all, you're going to want to evaluate the source. Make sure that it is a reliable source. So evaluating sources to determine if they are reliable. Here are a series of questions you can ask as you look at the source. First of all, who wrote the web page and article? Are they an expert on the subject? How do you know that? Do an internet search of the author if necessary to find out. What's the purpose of the site? Is this is it fact or opinion? Are they trying to persuade you of something? Do an internet search to see what others say about the website or source. And note, domain names with .org are not necessarily any more credible or unbiased than .com sites. So be careful. Where did the information come from? Do they give sources? Do those sources seem credible? Click on the source links. Do the sources actually support the information on the website? And was the information taken out of context? So be sure, as you're evaluating whether this is scholarly or peer-reviewed, that you ask yourself these questions. Okay, so here is an example of a scholarly source that I got from a Google search. Environmental Protection Agency site. I decided I'd go there and see if they had anything on urban heat islands. And again, it's just a .gov. This is definitely a scholarly site, and I'm going to look within the site for the topic of urban heat islands. And they have a whole page on Learn About Urban Heat Islands. That's great. Now, how am I going to create a citation for this in Noodle Tools? So first of all, you will go back to Noodle Tools and click on your project. So you'll sign into Noodle Tools. Remember, you had it bookmarked, and you'll click on the project. And then you'll sort of evaluate what the source is. Well, EPA.gov is a website, so we'll be clicking on website. We'll be adding a new source and then choosing website. And then you're going to see this, all sorts of different websites. Well, this Learn About Urban Heat Islands is really a web page. If I look through here, that really seems to be the best thing. It's a website, it's a web page within a website. So I will use web page and I will click on that. Now, you're going to look all over this web page. An awful lot of the time, students will say, I couldn't find anything. It's no date. I see a lot of n.ds. But you should look around because sometimes at the bottom you will see updated. So you can see for this particular Urban Heat Islands page, it said it was last updated on September 15th, 2021. So that was the date of the publication. So you're going to fill in as much information as you can into the website. So starting with the URL, but the date of the publication, you can see when I most recently accessed it, and you're going to fill in as much of the information as you can. Now, this thing does not have an author, so I'm not even going to fill in author, okay? But what I am going to do is I'm going to look at the web page title, okay? So the website is the EPA, but the web title of the web page is Learn About Urban Heat Islands, and the website is the EPA Heat Islands web page. So we're going to put in the name of the website, United States Environmental Protection Agency Heat Islands, and the web page is Learn About Urban Heat Islands. We won't put in an author if we don't have an author. You're going to put in as much as you possibly can, though. All right. Then, once you put that in, by clicking Save, your citation will be perfectly and alphabetically saved. So here it is. You'll notice it is alphabetized since it doesn't have an author. It's alphabetized by the name of the article of the web page, Learn About Urban Heat Islands. It says the date when it was updated. It says the name of the website, United States Environmental Protection Agency, Heat Islands. It says when it was retrieved. It gives the URL. This is in perfect citation. It is in between the article written by Knight and one by Lee, and that's how you will alphabetize it, okay? So by clicking Save, your citation will be perfectly and alphabetically saved. Now, just looking ahead to your introduction, you're going to use your bibliography for your proposal, but you're hopefully having information and taking notes from these sites that will eventually go into a longer introduction. So in-text citations will be required for that longer introduction, and we'll talk more about that when we get closer to the introduction, but just as a looking ahead, In-text citations are parenthetical citations that are of the format author, year or title, year, and match exactly the citations in the literature cited. And you use the author's first name and et al. For in-text citations of works with more than 2 authors or editors. When a work has no identified author, you cite in text the first few words of the article title, like Learn About Urban Heat Islands, using quotation marks. It's sort of a headline style capitalization and the year. Let me show you an example. So when you actually go to doing in-text citations, you can see anytime you're using information that you got from a source, at the end of the sentence, you'll put the in-text citations. And this one's an author, year. Here's Learn About Urban Heat Islands. This is the one that did not have an author, but that's the way it is in our literature cited. So, and if you had more than one author, you see that RM et al. Means that there were more than 2 authors for this particular paper, and you didn't want to take a whole line listing all the authors. You can see them in the bibliography. Now, this is what you'll need to do for your introduction. This is just kind of looking ahead. That's why you want to make sure you have good, useful sources for your proposal. Okay, so if you need further help on this, please reach out and ask your teacher, ask a librarian, or remember, you always have the science fair mentors available to help you with this research. And that is your lesson on research and references and citations.